Folks, things just escalated big time. This is war. We're going to talk about it next here on Prepper Nation. Welcome to Prepper Nation. I am John. Thank you very much for being here as always. Yes, you. Thank you for sharing, for liking, subscribing, all that stuff, even disliking the video, whatever you want to do. So there's lots to talk about for sure. And as we discussed yesterday during the live stream, there are going to be multiple videos hitting on certain days. Today's one of those days. Okay. Going to talk about the election, the primaries and stuff like that, the debates and the interview with Trump later. Right now, I want to talk about uh, the leader of the Wagner group, private military company group. Um, Yesterday, it was announced that this man was killed in a plane accident, plane crash, plane shoot down. They really don't know, along with not only him, but the deputy of the group, which was second in command, and the head of security and some others. Um, when I saw this news, because I level with you, I was doing a little bit of yard work. I came in to sit in front of the air conditioner, cool off a little bit. It's been hot here. And I saw this news on TV, and the first thing that came to my mind was, for those that are familiar with this event, Archduke Ferdinand. Um, there was an assassination just prior to World War One, and it kind of really set everything off. I said, "Oh my God, the parallels here now are unreal," because Archduke Ferdinand was thought to be next in line, uh, you know, to take over a country. I believe it was Austria, and I would have to go back and check on that, but I'm pretty sure it was Austria at that point. And a lot of people, especially in Russia, thought that Prigozhin, I think I'm saying his name correctly. I mean, he was very popular among the Russian people, and many people thought, political people and things thought, he's next in line. If Putin is ever going to be replaced, it's going to be by this guy. He was popular among the people. Russia's generals and Russia's elites, not so much. They hated this guy. They couldn't stand him. But again, very popular among the people. He was a populist in many ways because he was pro Russia 1,000%. And so we have to step back and be objective here. And we have to look at what may have happened, because there's so much information coming out through a Western mainstream media and also the Russian media outlets. And I'm going to go over, excuse me, I'm going to go over the three scenarios that could possibly be at work here, and I'm going to explain why I think each one is plausible, and then I'm going to tell you what I think is really going on. This is just opinion, okay? So number one, Russia could have taken this guy out. I think that's the most likely scenario. Putin does deal harshly with political opponents. This guy was on Putin's naughty list from what we've been told. Yeah, he absolutely could have seen this man as a threat to his throne. I know he's a president, but Putin really does rule in many ways like a warlord. And if this guy's a threat, you eliminate the threat. So it is very, very possible that Russia took this man out. And unfortunately, we will never know for sure, because this happened on Russian soil. This was outside of Moscow that this went down, and Russia's investigating. It's not like they're at war with NATO. It's not like they're going to allow NATO and those investigators to come in and take a look at the evidence. So we have to go strictly on what Russia's telling us, in that, in a sense of speaking. The second scenario, and I know this doesn't sound very plausible, but I'll explain. NATO may have actually taken this man out. Again, this is right outside of Moscow, but I believe that NATO countries, some of the more advanced countries, have the ability to come in undetected, take down an airplane, and leave before anybody knows what's going on. This is my opinion. I will say Western media within 20 minutes, Western media being the British media, the American media, Australian media, Canadian, all across the board, within 20 minutes, Western media somehow had video footage of this and eyewitnesses, multiple eyewitness accounts. As almost as if they already had reporters in place to talk to people. And if you look at the terrain where this plane went down, there were not a lot of homes there. Maybe 3 or 4 within several miles of this, that could have actually seen this plane coming down. And as it would just so happen, somebody was outside filming at this time on a cell phone. So I don't know. It's so obvious that Russia did this that it almost doesn't pass the smell test for me. It's so the the fact that we had what we needed in Western media within 20 minutes, and the fact that Joe Biden within 30 minutes was addressing the entire situation and already throwing it on Putin. I don't know, man. There's just something about that, but we'll get into that. And the third scenario, and I don't think this is very likely. I heard this on Sky News when they were covering it. One of their former military generals, they sometimes have generals on there to war game and stuff like that. And he said, look, we have to entertain the idea that Prigozhin wasn't even on the plane. He was listed as a passenger. He was on the manifest as a passenger, but we have no idea if this man was actually even on the plane. It's not like we're going to be allowed to see the bodies, to see the wreckage. We're basing this solely off of what Russia is telling the international community. Why would they do this? Why would this man? Because it would have to be in conjunction with Putin, right? This is something that they would have had to come up with together. Why would they fake it? Well, because right now NATO has a ton of assets stacked on the border right across from Belarus, where the Wagner group is set up. So if NATO is to believe that there's no leadership within the Wagner group, because now it's up in the air, nobody knows what's going to happen to this private military, NATO might be inclined to redeploy those assets somewhere else and kind of open the door for an invasion. Not of Poland. I had that comment yesterday. I don't believe that there would be an invasion from Belarus into Poland. I think that they would swoop down because they're not that far away from Kyiv, the capital city of Ukraine. So if that were the case, I think it would be to confuse NATO more than anything else. Here's the scariest part for me. All right. Here's why my antenna, so to speak, went up when I first saw this news. Again, the parallels are unreal between this and Archduke Ferdinand prior to World War One. As I look at everything, this World War III that we're talking about, at least the hotbed of it over in Europe and Ukraine, that entire region is beginning to look a lot like World War One, where we stack assets, we stack resources, and it turns into trench warfare. So, of course, during World War One, we didn't have drones, right? They had Zeppelins, they had planes, and very crude ones at that. But it's looking a lot like the same static lines, right? Meaning both sides are entrenched in. There's not a lot of movement one way or the other, and it turns into just an outright meat grinder and battle of attrition, if you will. Um, I mean, we've over the past year or so, we've seen heavy trench warfare between the two sides, and that's very reminiscent of World War One. Um, how can I put this? So when Archduke Ferdinand was assassinated just prior to World War One, it kind of opened this vacuum up, if you will. And this vacuum, it was many people think it was a false flag to kick off a world war. They think that other nations were at play in the whole 9 yards. It's worth studying if you're into history, but I digress. The point is, Many nations had committed at that time to sending aid, sending resources, same as right now, but they didn't really want to go to war. And so many people believe, and you can look at Pearl Harbor as that, that uh, false flag for World War II, but I digress. It just creates a vacuum that kind of begins to suck all the countries into conventional warfare. And it looks a whole lot like that from where I'm sitting right now. There's just one thing I can't figure out. So, and this smells really fishy to me because, again, all signs point to Putin. All signs point to, hey, Russia's known for doing this. Russia probably did it. Let's go ahead and say they did it. Um, and I want y'all to ponder on this for a little while this morning, folks. Last night, I saw footage of Putin and his motorcade heading back to the Kremlin. Like he had found out this event had went down and he wasn't at the Kremlin and they were heading back. They were flying. I mean, they were flying like their country was under attack. I've never seen a motorcade move that fast in my life. And again, it smells fishy to me because if you, being Putin, if you're the man responsible for this in the first place, why would you do that? Why would you fly back to the Kremlin at that point in a motorcade? I mean, they were doing 100 miles an hour. It makes no sense. If Putin was responsible for this, and again, he may have been, I don't know. We may never know. But if he was literally responsible for this event, I would have to think because he's not a stupid guy. He realizes this can open up a vacuum of events that's going to start, literally click off World War III. He would have already been at the Kremlin, I think. He would have already been somewhere safe, surrounded by generals, waiting to see how the international community responded. Um, and instead, these people were driving back to the Kremlin flying like he had no idea. Because think about it from his perspective for a second, okay? Warlord or not, put that aside for a second. If you're not responsible for this, and you know it, like he knows he's not responsible. If he indeed is not responsible, then he knows it's NATO. He realizes at this point NATO had to come into Russian airspace undetected, take this plane down. The eyewitness accounts, several eyewitnesses said they heard two explosions prior to this plane going down. And a few of the eyewitnesses actually said there was a second plane trailing the plane that went down that had the Wagner leader on board. And the second plane was doing this, which is very similar to what you would expect some sort of a fighter jet to be doing. So if this wasn't a Russian fighter jet of any type, and Putin knows this, he's thinking at this point, NATO is in our airspace. We may already be at war. We need to get back to the Kremlin. So this man was flying as though it was World War III red hot, and he was trying to get back. So just something to ponder, folks. Either way, I mean, this thing could be the vacuum event that we've been talking about for a little while. Keep your eyes on the Wagner group because they have tens of thousands of soldiers. Yeah, many of them are conscripts from prisons and things, but they really are um, not a nice fighting force by any means. I believe that they've committed all kinds of war crimes, but in a time of war, they're seasoned. They've been doing the frontline fighting almost since day one. And these aren't recruits that have been drafted in Poland, or these aren't reservists being sent from another country. These folks have seen action. So now we have tens of thousands of soldiers who've seen all this action, and nobody knows who's in charge of them. We don't know if Russia is going to absorb them into the regular army. We don't know if they're going to hang out and just stay and become part of Belarus's military. We don't know if a new leader is going to rise up. And I don't know. It's very interesting stuff to me, at least. Let me know what y'all think in the comments. And again, sometime today, we're going to be talking about the aftermath of the primaries and that epic interview between Tucker Carlson and Donald Trump. Y'all take care and God bless.